Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So today we're doing a series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, but I got a little bit more of a Christmas special for you guys today because PGA released not one but two new Castlevania Mega Drive demos for everyone to play as of yesterday, the 25th. Now you're going to be watching this on the 27th, so it's been 2 days. If you're not aware of PGA, he's been porting over Castlevania Symphony of the Night to Mega Drive, and I did a demonstration preview video on that maybe 6 or so months ago. But as a Christmas he is previewing some of his new Castlevania projects, including Aria of Sorrow and Castlevania 3 ported over to the Sega Genesis. These are definitely early in progress demos. There's not a ton of gameplay, but it's absolutely insane to see these games come over to Sega Genesis. And obviously we're starting with Aria of Sorrow, one of my favorite Metroidvania games of all time. But honestly, we were spoiled as hell on the Nintendo DS, getting 3 great Metroidvanias. And you will see here the graphics from Aria of Sorrow have been ported over to the Sega Genesis, and they look absolutely outstanding on Sega hardware. There's just something about the colorways and the overall way that the Genesis or Mega Drive actually draws sprites and background layers and parallax that just work on the hardware and make it look so unique and interesting. Now again, these are just technological demos, something fun to play around with this holiday season, but they are indicative of future potential projects. Imagine being able to play the entirety of Aria of Sorrow on something like the Mega Drive along with Symphony of the Night and Castlevania 3, and you'll see we're just going to kind of jump around from area to area here because it really isn't a fully cohesive demo. They more are just tech demos. But going into this hallway again, the graphics just look incredible here, and the sprite work, actually translating that DS sprite over with all of these different movesets and specials, just look great on the Sega Genesis hardware. And again, I know some people like to ask, what is the point of these ports? Because obviously playing something like Aria of Sorrow is not a difficult thing to do. You can play it on the original DS, you can play it on software emulation, it has been re-released for modern platforms as well, but there's something about these conversions, especially down conversions, when you take something that is more powerful and put it onto a less powerful platform, they're just absolutely enamoring to see. And you'll see here Alucard running through Aria of Sorrow as well, something that you normally wouldn't get in the base game. That's the other fun thing about projects like this. You can make additions, you can make changes, and kind of have your own fun with it. But I would say again, all of this is just so much fun to see, and I can't wait to see PGA update the demo for the Symphony of the Night remake as well on Genesis. I'll show you some footage of that towards the end of the video. But the parallax here, the colorways really do make this look like Aria of Sorrow, except in a completely different manner. It feels infinitely familiar yet completely foreign at the same time, and that's why these projects are in fact fun, and it also aids for future development on Mega Drive and Genesis, whether it's ports of games to the platform or brand new games, because every single bit of developer knowledge is usually shared within the community, and people get to learn about how the hardware works, what you can get out of it in 2024 and 2025, and that is great because we've been seeing a lot of Sega Saturn, Sega Genesis developments this year, even 32X. It seems like Sega's old hardware is just getting a completely new lease on life in the last 12 to 18 months, and I for one absolutely think that is incredible because there is still a lot of life in this old hardware. There's still so much more fun we could have with it, and an Aria of Sorrow conversion from the Nintendo DS to the Sega Genesis is definitely something I 100% want to see get finished up in the future. But leave me a comment down below and you tell me, is this something that interests you, or are you just happy to play the DS version of the game? I would be curious. And you will see here there is a basic level selection as well, so you can kind of pop around to different areas in the demo just to take a little peek at what's going on with all of these different fan projects. And one of my favorite parts is the music converts so well over to something like the Sega Genesis sound hardware. It has such a unique piece of hardware in there, that Yamaha chip to get the music out, that just lends itself to sounding incredible with Castlevania. So listen for 45 seconds and I'll be right back with more. I mean, I absolutely love the music in Castlevania. It's some of the most iconic video game music of all time, and it sounds great coming out of the Sega Genesis. But let's move over to the other Christmas demo Pigsy sent out, Castlevania 3 converted to the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive as well. Now, this is definitely way more of a rudimentary tech demo, just showing what it would look like if you actually upgraded the NES original Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse over to more powerful 16-bit hardware. So whereas something like Aria of Sorrow is a down conversion to less impressive hardware, something like Castlevania 3 moving over to the Sega Genesis is moving to more impressive hardware. This definitely has some graphical corruption. It is just a fun piece of a tech demo for Christmas, but it shows the promise of what could be coming in the future for Castlevania and Sega fans. Imagine being able to play the entirety of Castlevania 3 on the Sega Genesis with improved graphics, improved music, and everything else that the platform could offer. And it's one of those things. Dracula's Curse, definitely an amazing game. The Japanese version is slightly better because it has that additional sound hardware, so maybe you can combine the best of both worlds along with the power of the Sega Genesis just to see what you can get. And you'll see here, things definitely get a little bit wonky and a little bit weird, but that is to be expected because, again, this is just preliminary work trying to see what could possibly happen, and getting the parallax in this level here just looks incredible again. And these are the type of modifications and fan projects that absolutely do excite me and get me interested in what's happening next, because any reason to go and play Castlevania again, I will 100% take and be happy with. But leave me a comment down below and you tell me, what's the one game you'd love to see come to the Sega Genesis and the Castlevania franchise that was never designed for the platform? For me, it's definitely Symphony, Pugsy's main project, but there's so many other games as well. I'd love to see something like Rondo of Blood converted to the Genesis, because honestly, the more ways to play Rondo of Blood, the better. But here's a soundtrack sample of what Castlevania 3 sounds like musically coming out of the Sega Genesis hardware. 35 seconds, I'll be back and tell you a little bit more about the project and talk about Symphony of the Night as well. Just another iconic track, and I do love that little film strip bump there as well that they use in the original game. It comes across so well into this conversion to the Genesis, even if some of the graphics are definitely missing. And that really is the thing. These type of projects are just love letters to the source material and the source franchise. Because of course, if you want to play Castlevania 3 today, again, there is a multitude of ways to play them. And if you do want to check out these demos, they work on real Sega Genesis hardware, they work on software emulation. As you're seeing here today, they work on MiSTer FPGA as well. And that's always fun to be able to get these sort of demos at Christmas time, because this holiday season there's been a metric crap ton of new game releases, new translations, new modifications, and new fan games, and I've tried to cover each and every one of them that I think would be interesting to you and is of interest to me. And I love the full moon coming in the back of Dracula's castle here as well on the Symphony of the Night sort of demo situation here with Aria of Sorrow and everything else going on in the background. And just to remind you that Pugsy is converting the entirety of Symphony of the Night over to the Sega Genesis. Yes, it's going to come with some changes, but this was the last preview that I talked about on the channel, just showing you some of the footage and why this is so impressive to me. It's the type of thing I just love to see how these projects get made, and if it involves Castlevania, it excites me even more. And again, you can try these demos out as well for yourself. I will leave a link in the description below so you can spend a little bit of your Christmas and New Year's Eve season just kind of checking out what Castlevania is doing here. Because I will say Symphony of the Night converted over to the Sega Genesis sound and video hardware looks absolutely outstanding, and it's just a complete vibe that feels both familiar because you played the original game a ton of times, as well as completely foreign and different because it never looked quite like this. But it is a fun time, it's a total vibe, and I would say if they released Symphony of the Night on the Sega Genesis back in the day, I think it would have gotten every bit as good of reviews as it did on PlayStation 1. But you tell me down below, what's your favorite Metroidvania game and what's your favorite standard Castlevania game? For me, as far as the standard games are concerned, Rondo of Blood takes the top spot, with the X68000 version being in a very close second, and for me, Symphony of the Night will always be the best Metroidvania game we ever got. The original still stands the test of time, and it still is, at least in my opinion, one of the best video games ever made of the modern era of the retro era, and I can't wait to play a full version of it on Mega Drive and Genesis sometime in 2025 or maybe even 2026. But that's the Castlevania news. You got 2 new demos as well as the Symphony of the Night demo that's existed, so definitely check them out this holiday season. But we're done. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.